Hello everybody, and welcome to the next video in the eOPSEC 101 course, OPSEC for Absolute Beginners. The last video was our final video on VPNs in this series, and as a result, we now have another slideshow for DNS itself. This slideshow isn't going to be very long, though. There's not much to explain, so you won't have to sit through much of this before we get onto 4 more interactive videos. Now, what is DNS? When you think of DNS, think of like a phone book or a dictionary, right? This is what takes the IP address and converts it to readable words and letters. So think of it this way. When you go to youtube.com, that website has an IP address assigned to that domain. So if you type in youtube.com, you get youtube.com. If you type in the IP address for it in the search bar, you also get youtube.com. But say that you don't have a DNS server running, and you type in youtube.com. Your browser is going to be like, okay, what the fuck is this shit? What do you want me to do with this? But with the DNS server, it basically says, oh, you're right, and it converts that IP address to the website without any further intervention from you. So we've got an explanation here. Basically what I just said converts the IP address to a domain. So 111.112.69.420 fake IP address to youtube.com. Without the DNS server, you would have to type in this IP address to pull up YouTube. But with the DNS server, you don't have to figure out the IP address and all of that. And again, since you don't have to do that, it connects without any further intervention from you. Now, a private DNS server is quite interesting because a lot of people who aren't very educated on OPSEC or really anything in IT would probably think that a private DNS server would be a lot like a VPN, but it's really not. So the way that a private DNS works is it uses DOH, which is DNS over HTTPS. We know what DNS is, and I'm not going to get much into HTTPS because that's not the point of this series, but basically HTTPS is Hypertext Transfer Protocol Secured. That is all the information you send on a browser on the internet, but with encryption. Now, this is pretty much done, automatically these days in 2025. 99.9% of the websites that you see are already going to support HTTPS itself. So you're not really going to have to make much use of this. But there are other uses, one of them being they can block ads and geo-restricted content. And for the purposes of this video, the one I'll be showing you does both. It reduces your threat window as well, because a lot of malware out there that connects to the internet basically requires like browser and internet vulnerabilities. And if you're configured to a private DNS, then that threat window is cut out entirely. You may still get infected, but say you get infected with like an info stealer or a remote access Trojan. And you don't need to know what these do, but you do need to know that they are built solely for stealing your information. If you've got a private DNS server set up, then you might still get infected, but your information will still be safe. Now, one crucial thing that VPN has over private DNS is private DNS encrypts all your data by using the DOH protocol, but it does not anonymize you. It doesn't really hide where you're from. It doesn't say, oh, you're from Zurich when you're actually in like, I don't know, Orlando, Florida, right? So it does encrypt all your traffic, but anybody who sees your IP is going to still know where you're from, or at least like the general area. So private DNS, VPN, or both. A lot of people in IT are going to tell you that you don't need both. And as a matter of fact, you shouldn't use both because it just slows you down way too much. Here's the thing. I kind of see what they're going at, but once you look at it more like past surface level, you don't really have to worry about that. A private DNS is almost just as fast as your regular internet anyway, but using a VPN and a private DNS, it's not going to slow you down much more than just the VPN. That's really the main concern that they have. Another concern that people will bring up is that, let's see, what's another major one that I can think of? There's really not a lot. There was one that I had in my mind, but it wasn't very important because not a lot of people say it these days. But a lot of people will make the comment that, like VPN servers these days usually have their own private DNS anyway. And that's true. But the thing is, private DNS providers that are independent without VPN, they're a lot less common than the VPN providers themselves. So let's say you use Proton VPN, right? Proton VPN also has a custom DNS server. But if you're trying to view geo-restricted content and, say you're on Amazon or something, and they detect that you're using the DNS server through Proton VPN, they're most likely going to block your connection, or at least they're going to stop you from viewing that video entirely, or whatever, you're trying to view on like Amazon Prime or whatever. But if you're using Proton VPN and a service like AdGuard, we're not using AdGuard, but this is an example, then you can still use that DNS to bypass any geo restrictions that way. And since AdGuard is significantly just less popular, there's not nearly as many checks in place for it. Proton VPN and NordVPN and all of these, everybody's aware of it, so everybody that cares is going to have restrictions on these. But something like AdGuard, not many people use it just because they don't see the need. So there's not going to be that many restrictions. So what's next? So we have NextDNS. I mentioned AdGuard, but that's not what we're going to touch on because I just think NextDNS is better in every way. So we're going to go through NextDNS for Windows, Linux, Android, and iPhone. I think I'm going to do the Linux version first, and that's just specifically because I'm using Linux right now to record this video. I can record this one and then the next one without having to jump back and forth. But you'll probably see Windows first. It'll probably be this order that you're seeing now. So Windows, Linux, Android, and iPhone. These will be free. You don't have to pay for NextDNS. And you can use NextDNS without even creating an account on all 4 platforms, which is just amazing to me. But the next video will be NextDNS for Windows, we'll say for now. So I hope you guys did enjoy this one. If you guys did enjoy, please consider liking, subscribing, and all that good nonsense. Either way, my name is James Martin. You guys have been amazing, and I will see you in NextDNS for Windows.